Well, hello there, and good morning to you. This is the September tape. It's an unusual September tape because it's being made in November. But nevertheless, it is the September Stepping into Consciousness series. I am up on top of Mount Shasta. The reason that this tape is coming out in November is this is the first chance I really actually had of being off the road and being at home for more than 3 or 4 days. The beauty up on top of the mountain here is such that it is snowed and it's covered in white. It's very lacy. The colors, all the colors in the rainbow are up here. And so it's apropos that I'm doing the September tape in the month of November. Rainbows are something we have worked with at summer camp, and they are expressions of light, of focus, of density, of quality. When they are up here in the snow, they are translucent. As I sit up here, I recall summer camp and the actual connection that several of us had, literally, physically, and others of us had it in different forms. But we were able to see colors just being there. And many people who were not at summer camp had the same experience at their homes around the country as this rainbow energy or consciousness worked with us and shared with us. Each of us, of course, because we're all different type personalities, perceiving things differently. I had been working on this consciousness, as I may or may not have spoken to you before about, for about 7 years. I had felt that the colors that we see in terms of rainbows are actually a state of consciousness. And that besides the rainbows in the sky, there's the rainbows in the snow, there's the rainbows on the water, there's rainbows in rain. I'm looking out on the light-laced covered snow, and I'm seeing the colors orange and blue and violet, turquoise, golds. And also, as the wind is dancing across, I'm watching the loose snow be carried up in columns of visions of swirling winds and vortexes, thousands of feet across, all dancing around me, just sort of saying hello. And I'm honoring right now all of these pieces of nature that have chosen to join with us on this tape this morning for this September tape. And rainbow and color being the focus of this tape. As I look, I begin to realize that color is one of those overlooked and yet not overlooked aspects of our physical, created, manifest world. It also is one of those things that lightly dances through other dimensions, other sections of time, other qualities of energies that are not necessarily on the physical plane, but yet we as a human species can see them, feel them, perceive them, know them to be an avenue of oneself that extends beyond the normal state of consciousness. And yet, nevertheless, there, glowing, shining. The wind, as it blows across this truck, and I would like to tell you that it is a brisk 20 degrees out there, even though this is the September tape, it is November. And the noise that you are hearing is the, just in case, I'll catch a good one when it comes rolling on by here. It's brisk. The universe is out here letting us know it is saying hello, hello, hello. The element of wind, something that we don't see, but yet we can feel, and yet we qualify it for the physical plane. I'm kind of trying to catch one. Let me just sort of see if we can coax one of these big Hummers over the truck with some real sizable movement so that we can catch it on the tape. And then what I'm trying to do is present a complete picture on those avenues or aspects of ourself that extend past something that is physical. Sure, sometimes you can see the wind, but still it's something we feel. And yet, riding the wind is something we should be capable of doing. It is an extension of ourself. One of those multi-dimensional aspects of ourself that brings us in tune with our extendability of consciousness. Because I'm teaching multidimensionalness and how you are to become a multidimensional being. In these last few tapes will be scattered some of the best techniques that can bring your physical awareness, a linear concept of how to perceive yourself in a far greater awareness. In other words, the wind you can't see, but it causes your feeling body a state of perception that allows you to be more than just the physical state. What I want us to learn is to know that we are God, yes, but that in that extension of God we reach out into the other dimensions. And these are the simple physical attributes that I will be pointing out so that your physical awareness can reach out and perceive itself as more than it can in the physical awareness. Colors, rainbows, they are outside of us, yet if we tune into it, we can become that rainbow. We can become that color that dances on the snow. We can become that essence. We can extend ourselves out. This is a form of practicing how you are God, so that you can become this God essence that we are talking about being, so that you can begin to, with your physical mind, have perceptions of your extendability, so that you can get physical practice in on how that works. And looking at a rainbow is one of those things. Or looking at the colors of a frozen pond is one of those things. Looking for the color in the stream as it goes by. Learning how to meditate around these areas and extend your perceptions of your divinity. You want to be God? These are simple, everyday practices on extending your awareness to the enriched world that is continuously around us, 2 inches from our nose, that we sometimes have a tendency to overlook when we should be centering on some of these things to learn how to extend ourselves into these other worlds of which we are. Now, color, rainbows, that which is manifesting and sparkling in this very split second in front of me. I'm looking, 30 feet on the snow, and the color orange, surrounded by golds, and a tapestry of turquoise, just intermingled with this magnificent essence of color just showing itself to me. And as I focus on that, and yet still focus on this tape, focus on the cool air, focus on the windows because I have them down in the truck because I had to take the truck to get up through the snow, focusing on the light, bringing it into my essence, all of a sudden, just by being aware of the footage around me, listening to the wind, just by looking and perceiving all of these things, my awareness sharpens. It extends farther. I am allowed to see that I am truly this God essence, this extension of myself. And I begin to hone in on this, and I can focus on the colors. And I can focus on different things as it begins to come up. First there was the calm, now there's the wind. Tell you what, we're going out into the wind. We're out into the snow, catching the wind and all things that are around us. Looking at the colors and seeing how the colors work. Walking upon the colors. Allowing ourselves to extend, to grasp, to perceive ourselves into the things of which we are. Talking to the color. Extending ourselves so that we can feel it, we can be it. We can perceive the consciousness of that which goes beyond ourselves and yet begin to bring it into linear understanding. This allows us to perceive the divinity, that God aspect of ourself that is so infinite, so ever expanding. Using bits and pieces that are closest to us to focus on allowing our mind to travel out and perceive the limitless things that there are. Joining with these God things to share with that limitless aspect. To understand those colors, and then to bring those colors that we look at into ourselves, to see what it really does look like. Taking a ride on the wind as we talk and let it just sort of carry us. Feel it as it just sort of rides through our body. Lifting and knowing and being at one with all things, so that we can learn how to become those things. And as we become those things, we begin to know that we are those things. And we begin to know a little more of our divinity, a little more of our godness. Riding on that wind and feeling it as it lifts us and looking into the color of things. Basically what is happening is that it is lighting up out here. The colors are incredibly brilliant. The winds are blowing gently. Or not. Finding a little difficulty getting across the snow. In tennis shoes, it wasn't my idea to hike. But we're on and I'm sort of getting back down here to the beginning. And just hang on a second. I need to turn the tape off. All right, sitting at last. Well, what we did was we took sort of a little walk out there. The magnificence of the wind and the ability of our multi-dimensionalness to sort of perceive that, to be inspired by something when you're talking about it so that you can share it. It's sort of like I'm starting to teach how to be a multidimensional being, and people are going like, well, what is a multidimensional being? And it's sort of like, well, God is a multidimensional being, first off, and so it's sort of easy to allow ourselves to begin to perceive other avenues of our existence and bring those avenues back into the physical linear plane, which allows our brain to open up its awareness of what its picture of God is, which then begins to take the limitations off the pictures that we may have created in our own minds about what God is, therefore what we are capable of doing. And then by seeing that there is more of ourself, like we can feel ourselves, we can feel the wind, we can feel our essence flow on it, we can see the colors in rainbows, we can see the colors in the snow. We have a perception of ourself that isn't anything that we can touch, see, or see per se. Yet within all of this, we still know that we were more than the brain could come up with. And so therefore we can get this extra set of facts or material into ourselves. Sometimes there's a pause in my thought because I've got to take a break in the tape for sneezing or whatever. And sometimes my thought gets a little varied, so but that's where I'm at. So As we begin, therefore, to see these normal everythings that have been there this whole time right in front of our nose as our extension of ourselves into our divinity and all feeling and perceiving aspects, we will begin to allow our physical brain to lighten up on the concept that it has of God, which will allow us to perceive ourselves as a lot more than just this physical unit that we're walking around in, which in turn will allow us to become more helpful in the way we were really meant to be or designed to be. It's as if once we learn how to extend ourselves into the full magnificence of the divinity, to unpollute the planet, or to help save the forest, or all of these other things become minuscule aspects in our magnitude of our perception of actually helping the planet in its evolutionary evolvement in keeping with the divine plan and following that which God had in mind for the original put together. As we begin to extend ourselves out and become aware of this, we'll begin to notice that the everyday thoughts that we had in pertaining to, wow, this is what we really should be doing, you'll begin to notice they'll start to dissipate, because you'll be able to actually perceive the grandeur of your divinity, which will allow you to manifest a changing of this planet in a way perhaps we haven't even dreamt of yet. Imagine that within one of a single thought from any one of us that are attaining these avenues of our divinity, with a single thought any one of us could almost totally change perhaps the pollution on the planet in less than a split second, just by altering the molecular structure. Or all of us together in one grand push of awareness could alter it. It's allowing yourself to see beyond what your mind can perceive yourself as being. This is how you begin to develop the multidimensional aspects of yourself. Right now, within that last explanation, I'm watching this snow come across the mountain and pick up speed, and then right in front of me roll over this ridge and drop down into a valley and create a vortex. And the snow is so light that it's almost as if somebody is drawing pencil lines, and it's almost like it's a silhouette, and it's spiraling and twisting like the DNA and like the RNA and like all of the things that the universe is created of. And all of a sudden, my mind perceives the spinning vortexes that are within inside of my body, of energies and movements of liquids as they spin through my veins and through arteries. And the same picture that I see in front of me, which is about 1,000 foot to 2,000 foot in, well, maybe 700 foot high and 700 foot round, and yeah, at least. It's a pile of football fields big. It's just extending, and it's like, it's nothing more than what we see in miniature inside of our body. It's the same patterns that the atoms use or the molecules use. And I look and I get a chance to see that my mind can actually perceive now the limitlessness that I am by watching all of these things in front of me. I see the actual pictures of the snow as it's laced, as it's lifted, the actual pictures of a hologram watching the DNA. And then it shifts into the RNA, and then it shifts into the Kundalini. And my physical eye has a vision of this. And I'm sure it's the same vision that we see when we see dust devils or any of those things. Allow yourself to see yourself as more. Those whirling aspects of winds, that's also God, therefore that's also you. And if you can reach out with yourself, you can feel yourself being that wind, seeing that color, being those shapes. And you will begin to linearly open up the dimensions to your divinity through the linear physical brain. You need to focus on them, you need to tune into them. You need to be able to perceive yourself as much, much more than what you actually are. To be God is to be all that there is, to be the tree, to be the valley, to be all. To take the time out in your physical day to not only see the physical things that are around you, but to perceive the limitlessness of your awareness extending in all things is what you are working for. To begin to understand the other bodies and eventually the space that you are and how you work. Because you are in the physical plane right now, you need to tune the physical brain in such a way that it is always allowing you to be more than what your concepts may have offered you in the past. In other words, that picture of God you can extend upon, because the one that you may have had is limiting. You are the wind, you are the color, you are the rainbow. As you begin to tune in to this, you begin to extend into that consciousness. There is in these other states of awareness the same space that is within you. Your awareness touches that space that is within you, and you can extend that awareness of you into those rainbows and those colors and that wind, and yet stand where you're standing and still look across 100 yards and see this incredible thing. You can allow your awareness to step into the space that it is. You can allow your awareness to step into the color that it is, because you know why? See, you are a color. The brilliance, the magnitude, the divinity that I am experiencing up here in what some would call paranormal, and yet what is the normal is beyond anything I can even speak of. The brilliance of the white light that is now radiating off the snow is nothing more than an expression of, yes, extend that consciousness, lift out into the dimensions, perceive the light, be at one with all that there is. Train oneself to do this consciously. Pick out things to do that will allow our linear brain to open ourselves up to be more. As I look at all that there is, I am inspired by the magnitude of what is available to us as human beings. We, in our human body, are color. And that color touches the color that we see within that rainbow. We therefore, within our physical self, have the same vibratory rate as any one of those colors in the rainbow, or in the water, or in the crystal, or in anything. And that color extends through the space from us to them. Therefore, as we extend from ourself into the God-created rainbow, which is another extension of itself, we can partake through color, a knowingness, an awareness, a touch of a share of the divinity. That communion with another aspect of God and ourself that is beyond all communion. To share in the communion of the totality in any form is such an accelerated feeling or state of knowing that wholeness is experienced without having some sort of religious scenario. Just an extending of color. As we look at a rainbow and we extend our awareness into it and perceive ourselves in the rainbow and have that communion, that's a divine communion, and yet I'll bet you there's nothing written about it in a religion. And yet these are the things, those sharing of those divinities, those extended qualities of ourself into totality, our physical perceptions of our multidimensional self, in an exalted state of communion with the divine. That's what it's all about. And yet you do that on a linear physical plane. Your color touches that other color because we are concentrating on that. We are using the mind, the awareness, to say the color within us is touching that color that is out there, and we are becoming at one. To share that at oneness. To allow the mind to reach out, letting the wind, perhaps, if it's there, carry that thought as the awareness is lifted and extended out. To extend that communion with all that is, because you are all that is what we are after. To linearly allow our physical mind to perceive ourselves extending into the divinity and oneness that we are, and communing with that divine peace and harmony and flow that resides within us, that has been there the whole time, that is just waiting to reach out as we take the binders off those pictures that we have of ourself and what we can do. Well, let's jump over to the other side now, and I'll continue there.